Once more. With feeling. Cool. Hello.
Nice.
Hi. All right. Nice moves there, Chance. I like that.
I felt like I should join in.
Get in the spirit
dancing.
of things. Yeah. How are you guys doing this beautiful Tuesday? I usually record these on Monday, but Tuesday today.
Well,
nice.
Well.
Nice. Hassan, is this still Tuesday for you? It is, right?
It is Tuesday, yeah. Sorry, I missed a little bit. It froze a little bit.
Oh, that's okay. No worries.
Yeah.
It's cool. You're my first international guest, my friend. Oh, frozen a little bit right there, too.
Oh, yeah, he's frozen.
I like it, though. At least he froze on a smile. Usually when you freeze, it's
that's
like,
true.
It's not good. Usually when I freeze, I'm like,
He's like,
yeah. Well, either way, we can still keep chatting. Hopefully he comes back.
Absolutely.
Very nice. So you are one of the playwrights on this new play for the Actor Circle Ensemble Pick Plays.
Yes, I am. I'm one of the playwrights.
Nice. Do we have a name for this play? Is this like a...
It's still very untitled.
Cool.
And when I was in a meeting yesterday with Casey and the crew, I was like, can you give me something? Like, I'm not sure what I want, because I don't want to go like obvious, I don't want to call it something like Black Lives Matter or whatever.
Yeah.
So I wanted to be like, I wanted to work with what I'm saying, but I can't make my brain figure out what to call it.
Fair enough. I feel like names are the hardest part of these types of things. Oh, he's back. Woo!
I'm back. Yeah.
Hey, man. Good to have you back.
That's good.
Awesome. So Hassan, what is your portion in this play, this activism play? If he freezes, I'm gonna have to ask you, Chance. You might have to answer for him.
Yeah. We can read his bio.
Yeah, there we go. We'll read his bio later. I had his bio, and you'd think I'd prepare for these things, but I don't.
I mean, but like, it's fine. You're gonna learn while we're here.
Exactly. I mean, I read the bios. I definitely do. I mean, I knew that you were in New York, but then I obviously forgot that you traveled back to California 8 years ago. So.
I've been like several places since I lived in New York.
Nice, world traveler. What's your what other places have you been?
So I'm from DC originally, like Arlington, Virginia.
Okay.
So I lived in New York, and then I moved to South Korea for 7 months. And then I lived in North Carolina for like 2 months while I pulled myself together, and then I moved to LA, and I've been here for almost 8 years.
Wow, South Korea. Did you like South Korea?
I liked South Korea. I did not like working in South Korea. It's weird. It's very, very different from here. Things work differently. So yeah. Cool.
Yeah. Oh wow. So I never. Well, I did work there, but it was kind of different. I did. Sorry, we have Hassan Inception, so I'm just figuring that out really quick. That was wild.
Inception.
I was like, double. I was like, whoa, that's crazy. That's cool though.
Great. I think it's working better on my mobile.
Oh yeah, it is much better.
Yeah,
much better, my friend. Yeah, South Korea was. We were just talking about traveling and stuff like that, Hassan.
Okay.
South Korea, I liked it. I thought the work ethic was really cool with the people, and everyone was really kind that I worked with. But it's a different. I imagine. So what I do when I'm not doing this is I tour with musicians. So like, when it's just a different environment. Like we live in a bubble. Like we go from place to place, but like we're in a bubble, and it's like I try and like get into as much of the culture as I can. But I am also very hyper aware of the fact that like, they're treating us a certain way because we're like guests and stuff like that, and we don't live there for a long time.
Yeah, and I think when I was there, I mean, there's a huge expatriate community in Seoul, and a lot of us,
Uh-huh.
I was teaching, and a lot of us are teachers, and they just kind of are like, ugh, not another one. I don't know.
Mm.
It was like a weird vibe sometimes.
Oh.
It's also very sweet, and I learned a lot culturally,
Huh.
and I'd always wanted to live abroad, so that was like check, but it was like a little bit weird.
I was really amazed by how big the U.S. embassy is in Seoul. Did you see that? It just goes on and
Yeah.
on.
Yeah,
The car drove past
huge.
it's huge. Yeah.
It's huge, yeah. It's giant. I mean, it's a beautiful city. Beautiful city. So much fun. It's just, and I would love to visit, but I would never live there again, and I would never work there again.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I get these little windows with what I do. I just get like a 2 week, 1 week, couple day window depending on what I'm looking at. But honestly, I think one of the reasons why I didn't enjoy Seoul. I wasn't in Seoul. I think we were in Incheon. I think that's like right next door.
Incheon is right by the airport.
Right. That's probably why we stayed there. But I think what it was is that was the first spot in the Asian leg of the tour. So like everybody was just destroyed. Like we were so tired from the time change, and it was in the middle of summer, so it was like incredibly hot, and it was like my first time experiencing that kind of humidity heat. It's like it's just another like I felt like I was swimming as I was walking. It was just incredible. But it was, I mean, it was cool. It's like, it's just, everything's just so different. I feel like that was one of the spots that when, in all the places that I've traveled to, I felt like that was one of the spots where like, I don't know. I mean, even living in America, we live in some like, in like a melting pot, right? We have so many different cultures here. Mm-hmm. But like, I always get to swim in the comfortability of like, I speak English, I can read the signs, I can, you know, and like, there it's just you're so starkly not in your element, and like there's no like signage with English. It's all in another language, and they don't, not that they should have to, but they don't apologize for it. There's no subtitles for you. You know, like you really have to depend on human kindness to get through.
It was really interesting. Riding the subway system there actually taught me how to read Korean.
Really?
I can't do it anymore. Like I can do it a little bit now, but
that's cool.
It's like rusty. But I took like 1 class or 2 classes, and then after that, I just from learning what like the alphabet in class, and then starting to look at everything on the subway. It taught me how to read Korean. So, you get used to it, and you immerse, and you learn.
Very cool.
It is weird at first.
Yeah, I mean, just like anything, I guess you start to get used to if you spend a long enough time there. 7 months is a long time. That's like really living there. I mean, that's cool.
Did you guys get to experience?
Lived there for 8 years. Sorry, go.
Yeah.
Did you guys get to experience when they had when they have the drills, with North Korea?
No.
When they like I remember that in a shopping mall, and we just all froze like on the stairs.
Whoa.
Like all like a freeze frame as they went through the drill of in case North Korea attacks.
Wow.
Did you experience that?
No.
No.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't know if they probably don't happen that often, but I was just it happened that when I was there on the trip that I experienced that.
Yeah, wow.
And I was like, this must have like a psychological effect on the population.
Just
like you must
growing
be
up like that,
sort of constantly frightened.
Yeah, I bet.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy. No, I didn't experience that. And it's funny because like with what I do, we have a lot of security protocols and stuff like that because we're always in a new area. We have a security guy that comes with us like every spot that we go to. And so it's so like we're usually very well prepped on like what to do if there's an active shooter, things like that. But we didn't do anything like that, and that's interesting. I didn't think about that actually, but I guess that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I'm sure it's something they have to deal with. But I can't imagine, like you said, like the psychological issues of constantly having to worry about something like that. Like again, a privilege that we have, at least here, it's like I'm not constantly thinking about that, but. Yikes! That would be something else entirely. But yeah, getting back to America. As you can tell, I'm amazing at segues. But so tell me a little bit about the play that you guys wrote together. Oh, I asked Hassan what his role in this play was. I know that Chance, you wrote part of most of it, co-wrote.
Oh, he has one, and then I have one, and they're both like 10-minute pieces.
Amazing. Okay, because so the 10-minute plays each one. And then you do the talk with the expert, and then you have the question and answer portion, which I remember.
Yeah.
Cool. So you each did your own. Very neat. Okay, so no co-writing. You guys are independent people.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Did something that I'm interested in talking to you about, Hassan, is since you are international, you're based in London right now, right?
Yeah.
I guess it's just interesting to me as someone from here and maybe very insulated, obviously not having the experience of being like. So, I mean, I'm Latino, but like it's not the same because I'm very passing. I don't know, passing white. I don't know if that's like the correct term, but I'm pretty whitewashed. Let's just put it that way. So I don't really deal with a lot of those issues. But like I'm wondering if that's something as prevalent in the UK as it is over here in the States. I mean, obviously we're having all these riots and issues and protests and things of that nature because people are fed up with what's going on. And I'm just wondering like how that translates to other countries, because we obviously have such a unique situation of the slavery and things like that we've done in our history. But I don't know. I'm just curious.
It does translate. I mean, there are of course racial tensions in Britain, and there have been, and also with the I think the success of Black Lives Matter is that there is a Black Lives Matter UK version of it, and activists who are carrying those fights here.
Wow.
So and we have of course cases just before the George Floyd case is the case that I've written my play about, which is a lady called Belly Mujengo, and she worked in a train station, and she's a black lady from Congo originally. And somebody came up to her and said, "What are you doing?" And she was like in uniform, so it's very obvious what she's doing.
Yeah.
She was like, "I'm working."
Yeah.
And the guy spat at her and told her, "I've got coronavirus."
Oh.
And the lady, a few weeks later, she was hospitalized and then she passed away.
Oh gosh.
So that was a horrible case with racial undertones. We don't really know exactly what the guy was,
right?
What his background was, or was he just sort of randomly crazy? But I mean, my guess is that that's definitely, even if he was crazy, there's racial undertones. Why pick on a black lady, particularly working in a station?
Right.
There's definitely that.
And she's clearly in uniform, so it's like one of those.
And also
where...
the people who were culprit were the people who run the station, her bosses.
Yeah.
Because she had respiratory problems, and she was telling them, "I've got respiratory problems. Don't make me work on the floor of the station." And they wouldn't listen.
Spiritual
problems? So her
problems?
family's trying to get justice for her, and they sort of say Black Lives Matter, Betty's life matters. Her name is Betty.
Okay.
And so that's a big case here in the UK. It was, and I was very moved by it, and just felt the sheer injustice of it. So I decided to write about it.
Wow. Okay. So that's what your play is about that incident. Wow. So do they know who this guy is, or is it just like, is he wandering the streets still? Is there any like footage of him?
They said that they've caught a suspect. They have not released information about him, like his ethnicity or who was he, so I haven't read that information in the press. But they've said they caught the suspect. They said he didn't have the virus. They tested him. So he probably just told her that. But this is why the focus of my play is really on the culpability of the train station managers, because she probably caught it from some other person, not necessarily from this guy who spat at her. It's the managers that put her life in danger by making her work, even though they knew that she had a respiratory issue.
Oh, respiratory issue.
And I think, and I think that comes to the lack of respect, and a lot of writers are writing about this at the moment. Lack of respect that Black people are shown, and particularly in workspaces. And I think it speaks to those issues. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Well, what a turn of events for him to say that and then do that and then not end up having it, and then and honestly, in a weird way, like, they're both hateful. Like, if he actually had it, but I don't even like, because he had to know he didn't. So like, he's just saying it just to be extra spiteful. Like, I don't know. Obviously, either one is terrible, because one is with the intent to maybe kill somebody, obviously. But it's just like, what a hateful thing to do. It's just, I don't know. It's hard. It's hard because it's just like, I don't know. I'm sure there are aspects of racism or things that maybe I play into that I don't even know about that are conscious. But the conscious hate, like, is so frustrating, confounding to me, because I just can't imagine treating someone that way, like, just with such disdain and for lack of regard for life, like, it's a human being. I don't know. I just dug myself into a hole, but I don't really know how to get out. But it's just
I
just
totally
hard.
Agree with you. And also, I think it speaks to there's been several incidents. It's not just this one incident where people have spat and said, "Oh, I've got coronavirus."
Really?
Some people might be doing it in kind of stupid joke.
Right.
Sometimes it's in a racial context. Sometimes it's not necessarily in a racial context. But that just, I can't get my head around that. Like, how could somebody at this time, when people are dropping and dying, to use something like that, even if it's in a kind of terrible taste joke? Right. It really baffles me. I can't get my head around that.
Right. Exactly.
I think the other issue of the story is that a lot of I really feel for people who work in the transport system. I think they've been kind of neglected. People talk about the nurses and the doctors and having equipment for the nurses and the doctors, and that's fine. But we've had a lot of, in Britain, a lot of bus drivers, like 40 bus drivers have died since the beginning of this. And this was the last time I checked the statistics, which was several weeks ago. Yeah. So it also speaks about kind of, I think this coronavirus has made us appreciate who really are the important people in society. Absolutely, yeah. And it completely changed our mind about who is important.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how it is over the pond, but for us over here, I felt like, I mean, essential workers is everything that was essential was so, it's working class, it's people who are like doing transportation, it's people who are, making your food. Working in
grocery stores.
Exactly.
And
Yeah, exactly. Right. And I think that was something that everyone, I noticed it right away. I actually did a video on it about talking about how, like, I immediately felt my, just like how it just affects everybody differently. And one thing that I did, I commented on, I made a video about some other stuff, but one of the things I said in the video was, like, it was such a simple thing, but, like, I was making a sandwich, and it was at the height of everything in, like, March, where it was like, if you go outside and breathe, you're gonna die. Like, no one really knew what was going on yet. And so in my mind, I was like, I was the one going to the grocery store to get food for my family, because I just was like, I'm the youngest and I guess healthiest, so I was doing that. And I was wearing my mask and whatever, and it was such a high pressure situation every single week. And then I was making a sandwich, and it was so dumb, but it, like, finally clicked, like, just other stuff in my brain. I was putting a slice of turkey on the sandwich, and then I was like, reached for another slice of turkey, and I was like, should I put that extra slice of turkey? This is so stupid, but this is what I thought. It's like, if I put that extra slice of turkey, I'm gonna go through that package too fast, and I'm gonna have to go back out, risk my life again, and do whatever. And it was just one of those things. And then I had that thought, and I was like, people live like that every day. Like, it's like people already live like that in scarcity. It was like a scarcity mindset of like, I gotta parcel this out, you know, because if I don't parcel it out, I have to go risk myself again. And it was just one of those things where I just sat there and I was like, wow, like, people live like that every day. People think like that every day. They have to worry about where their food's going to come from next. And I've just been so lucky where I just haven't had that. Yeah. And then including in this virus where it's like, it's really been like an eye-opener on so many issues like that, where it's just like, it doesn't affect everybody the same. Like when those celebrities would take the videos of themselves and be like, oh, it's just so hard for me to stay. And they're like spinning around in their mansion, and there's like the pool, and like their essential worker, like,
like 3 nannies.
Yeah, their nanny in the background, essential worker. I'm like, oh, I bet it's real hard for you. And, you know, freaking, I don't know, man. It's just, I feel like everyone saw the hypocrisy of that really fast. And it was like, I don't know. It frustrated me to see it, because even myself, like, I know I'm probably a step above where, like, I don't know, middle class, I guess, but like, man, like that, I don't know, that even frustrated me. So I can only imagine how somebody like below me would be like, what the hell are you even talking about? This is hard for you to stay at home. Like, I'm in a studio apartment with 2 kids or whatever. Like, it's just, that's another thing entirely. Yeah, I don't know. What is your play on, Chance?
Okay, so Casey and I had gotten into this. We were discussing what the best theme for me would be. And I didn't want to do something that was just like a Skype conversation. So I came up with this idea of having a protester. She was arrested and now she's in solitary confinement, and just how she's dealing with being in this confined space, and addressing the camera that's monitoring her directly and knowing who's behind that lens. So she's having a conversation with the officers that arrested her, that are treating her like shit inside of this place. And she's just within this confined space. She's dealing with her own like neuroses, her reasons for being in there in the first place. The officers that have her detained. And they're, you know, sort of just like behind the safety of this lens and watching all of this unfold, how she deals with all of it.
Wow.
In a nutshell.
Yeah. So kind of a one-woman play, as it were.
It's a one-woman, yeah. Well, it's a choreo poem.
Okay.
It's a one-woman choreo poem. I don't know if you're aware of what that is.
Not at all.
But there's this playwright named Ntozake Shange who created a piece called "For Color Girls Who Considered Suicide When the Rainbow Is Enough." The piece was created in the 1970s. It's one of my very, very favorite plays of all time. And it features several women, and they just sort of tell a story, the struggle of a woman's plight, a Black woman's plight specifically, and they do it through dance and poetry. So I took that idea and I scaled it down for one person, and so my piece is poetry, it's movement, and it's theater all combined, and a little mixed media because I added a beat in the beginning that's a video montage.
Wow.
Oh, cool.
That sounds really cool. That's
cool.
So many.
Yeah, it's fun.
Art forms.
It's fun.
So many art forms. This is cool. Did you make the beat, or did you have somebody?
I wrote the whole thing.
Sure.
The only thing that I didn't write was the protest chants in the beginning, because we just say those when we're out in the street.
Right.
And then the montage I'm going to cut and put that together for myself. Yeah. And the song in the beginning, it's called Jump Jim Crow. That's actually a minstrel song that was sang.
Wow.
Sang? It's not whatever. In the early 1900s, late 1800s. So that one's not mine either.
Oh, wow. Wow. That's like, That sounds like it arcs over time and space and all the all the different mediums. That's really interesting. Yeah, I mean, you have everything in that. That's like music, dance, poetry. You have multiple timelines because you're reaching back for like the different like minstrel songs and wow. Yeah.
There's going to be an African dance portion in the beginning as well.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so I'm trying to like get it all in 10 pages.
Wow. Did you choreograph like this stuff or did you?
No.
Okay.
I'm not directing it either. I just wrote it.
Fair enough.
And like put it all in my brain.
Fair enough.
Took it from my brain onto the paper.
That's yeah.
But yeah, so whoever we cast, I want her to be able to do all that herself.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, that's not that you should have to choreograph it. I was just gonna be like, wow, what do you not do? That was, I mean, you had some moves at the beginning when we were dancing, so I figured maybe, I don't know. That's
back in the day, but that didn't come to fruition.
Very nice. Wow, yeah.
I love the idea, as well as the dance and all that, the idea of the camera and the use of that. That's very that's a fantastic use of how you kind of the camera, the police camera, and to use that. Yeah, that's really super, yeah.
You know, I didn't want it to be what is expected of a Zoom play.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted it to be something unusual that people I didn't want people to like just expect it to be like a meeting, on Zoom like we do every day these days. I wanted to use the medium in a more creative way. So that's why I chose to do it from that angle, from the perspective of the cops looking in on this woman.
Yeah. Wow. Such unique, creative people we got going on here. This is cool. I'm feeling dwarfed. All I do is I put on some mics and I start talking about my stream of consciousness and my stupid issues.
That's okay too. We need that. That's important.
Yeah. Wow, that's just so crazy. So it's just not to hop back and forth, but it baffles me that we have that kind of racism in the UK as well. Like, it's just, I guess it's just, not that I guess it doesn't baffle me. I don't know what the right word is, but it's something where, unfortunately, I can see the line of like why some of that might still exist over here, because it's sad, but you see like, okay, well, only 60 years, it was something like, I read that yesterday, it was like 60 years ago, there was still like a segregated school or something like that in like, that's so like recent, where it's like, I don't know what the history is with the UK and with England, I guess, when it comes to those sorts of things, but yeah. Well,
I mean, Britain obviously, Britain was the inventor of the transatlantic slave trade, so they have
really?
a lot to answer for, really.
Wow.
I mean, so they benefited from that. Britain was founded on slavery. A lot of the institutions, even a lot of the banks today, they have sort of their roots go back to slave money, slave owners' money. So there are many ports where part of the transatlantic slavery was happening. So they are responsible. They have that history for sure.
Wow.
But I think in more recent time, we don't have quite the same story, because we don't have people who were descended from slavery staying in large populations the way you have in America. So actually, most Black people who are in the UK have come relatively recently. They came in the 50s after the Second World War, and they built the UK. They were labor force. They came from the Caribbean. They were supposed to be British, and then they came and settled in the country. And we had a recent scandal called the Windrush scandal. The Windrush was the ship that the famous ship that a lot of the Caribbean people came on it in the 50s, and we had a big scandal because a lot of these people, they did not have a regular British passport, but they were in the country for many, many decades. Many of them were in their 60s, and suddenly, because the government went so crazy anti-immigrant, and they were trying to appeal to the right wing so much that they rounded up a lot of people, including a lot of black people who were here for decades, who would be nurses and doctors and teachers and worked in all sorts of professions. And they deported many of them back to the Caribbean, where they hadn't been since they were children. And this became a huge scandal in Britain called the Windrush scandal.
When was this?
And so, Britain has issues. Definitely, it is not innocent. I think the only difference we have that distinguishes us maybe from America, where it's a little bit better, is that our cops do not have guns, so they don't go around shooting people to that extent. Very, very rarely, you'll find maybe around government buildings, the cops will have guns just against terrorism. But generally, the cops do not use guns, so we don't have that kind of police lethal force that you guys have.
Yeah.
I mean, unfortunately, these days they don't have to use guns anymore. So they're finding other ways. But that is great that they're not armed in the UK.
Yeah, I remember the first time I found that out. I was watching this BBC show called Luther. I don't know if you guys have ever seen it. It's Idris Elba.
Oh yeah,
fantastic show. He's such a good actor. But I was watching that show, and I remember him just going into a hotel room, and because he's going after this guy, and funny enough, the bad guy was an American, and the American, of course, has a weapon. He has a gun, and I'm watching him, and I know in the show he's a detective, and he's gonna go get the bad guy, and he walks into the adjacent hotel room of the bad guy. I'm like, what are you doing, dude? Just kick the door down. I'm so used to American, I'm like, just kick the door down and be a badass, right? And he goes into the adjacent thing, and he's doing all this stuff, and finally he reaches into the drawer and he grabs the Gideon, and I'm like, okay, weird time to reach for the Bible, but okay. And he's grabs the Gideon, and he goes to the adjacent door. You know how there's hotel rooms have adjacent doors? I'm like, what are you doing, dude? This guy has a gun. What are you doing? And I realized, it clicked in my brain. I was like, oh, British police don't carry firearms. So he has to find something else, and whatever. There's a tussle. He throws the Bible, and whatever. Obviously, whatever happens. But it's just it made it click in my brain of just the bravery of having to go into every situation. And just the training of having to know how to really de-escalate stuff and whatever, because you don't have the end all be all on your hip. You gotta know how to. I don't know. That's just it's obviously it's foreign, but it's a foreign concept to me. I was just I'm so used to cops just that's what they keep that on them. That's part of what they have as part of their repertoire. So it's it's just weird to think of a police force that isn't working in that way. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, I think that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. I unfortunately I don't know how that would work in the United States. I'm not saying that it's a good or a bad idea, but it's just we have so many guns everywhere.
I think it helps that we don't have any gun culture at all. So the bad guys don't have guns.
We're built on guns, which is crazy.
They have knives.
Right,
we have knife crime.
Right.
But we don't, and we have young people maybe in gangs and so on stabbing each other.
Sure.
But we don't have, if somebody goes crazy, usually if a gang member wants to stab somebody, they'll stab somebody directly. So there isn't we don't have bypass, what do they call them?
Something like a throwing
drive-by shootings or whatever.
Drive-by shootings or something like that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of So that just reduces the violence in the whole society, that these things are not floating around.
Right. As gross as it sounds, there's something so intimate about a knife that I think isn't in a gun. And so, like, to finish that thought, so it doesn't sound like I'm a serial killer. There's like, with a gun, there's an impersonal, right? Exactly. There's an impersonalness of this, where when it comes to like a knife, like if you, it's terrible, but like if you're gonna do that, you have to really want to do that, like with a knife. You know what I mean? Whereas like with a gun, you might just be angry and not be fully thinking. I don't know. It's definitely food for thought. I mean, our nation, as unfortunate as it, I mean, I don't know, fortunate, unfortunate. I mean, we left the British, and the only way we did that was with guns, and that's why we have the Second Amendment. But like, I don't know. There's so many rules that I don't know how they apply. The modern age is just so different, and I don't know. It's just so different. But like, also, it's what we're based around, like those amendments and Constitution and things like that. So it's such a hard topic because you don't want to stray too far from the core of how we became what we are, but at the same time it doesn't feel like some of the things apply the same way, you know?
Yes. Yeah. I think that we've come, I mean, that was the 1700s.
Right.
Like, it's everything is different now. The way that the amount of people in the United States is far more than they were thinking it would be in the 1700s, and and like just everything is completely different. There needs to be an overhaul of the system. Maybe not changing the root or the core of what America was based on, but just in some of the laws and some of the things that they were thinking of, then they don't apply anymore.
Sure. I mean, and it's so, I think it's also just something where it's like, just to play devil's advocate, because it just is, the reason behind the whole Second Amendment thing is that like, if there was some sort of foreign invader, there would be like, everyone would have a gun, right? Like everyone would have a gun to help protect against that. And we're so far removed from something like that. I mean, maybe not, I don't know, with Trump tweeting at North Korea every other day, who knows? But like, it's something that like we're so far removed from. It's like something that I guess it doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel like something that's going to happen. I feel like if something that's going to happen, it's just not going to be, it hasn't happened on our soil in a really long time. And
I think your problem is linked to capitalism and greed.
Really?
Because I think
100%.
These gun companies they make a huge amount of profit. And that's why they've got all their campaigns, and whenever a massacre happens, they go and send people. They're not just doing it because they believe in the Second Amendment. They're doing it because they make a lot of money. This is big business.
Fair enough. Yeah. Everything is business at the end of the day in the States. It's just, I mean, anywhere really. I mean, anything is business at the end of the day, but it's how much can you curb that?
But this is business that's killing people.
No, exactly. I don't even disagree with you at all on that. That's a good point though, because they literally have like PR people that like show up in like these spots. I've heard of that, and it's just like, yikes, man. It's just, but it's one of those, like you were talking about lobbyists and PR people for gun rights and things like that, but to, I guess, bring it back to kind of more topically on discrimination and racism and things like that. One thing that blew my mind when it comes to lobbyists and things of that nature, I guess, was just the prison guard unions, and how, I don't know if you guys know about this, but I found this out a while back, that they were lobbying against the legalization of marijuana for an incredibly long time. And it's because the more illegal that is, the more people you have in prison, the more prison guard jobs you have. And the more prison guard jobs you have, the more job security you have. So there's literally a union of prison guard people lobbying against the legalization of this substance strictly because of job security. So you'd rather keep people in a box for the rest of their life or ruin someone's life, really, because like once you have that charge on you, it's hard to get past that and all that stuff, because you'd rather have job security. finding that out made my skin crawl, and it was one of those little facts that I realized I'm like, there's so much more to all these little things that that I just don't know and don't understand. And yeah, I mean, I was kind of half bringing that up because of your. I mean, it's a little different. You're talking about somebody being in prison for or in jail for protesting in your play, but I mean, there's so much in the prison system that's just so broken that I'm just learning about myself. That is just, I don't know. I don't know if you have anything on that you wanted to talk about, but yikes.
I wrote a play about a full-length play about British people who went through the deportation system in America. So there were British people who lived. They committed the crimes, various, and the crimes were like from all the way from murder to drink driving. A lady got deported for drink driving, and they all went through the immigration. That's another system that really needs to be kind of talked about, which is the horrificness of the immigration detention centers, and also the role of money in that, because they're all run by private companies in Britain and in America. Britain is just as guilty. We have the same system, and we have these horrible immigration centers as well in Britain. But that's a whole other ball game. The way people are treated in there. The lack of dignity, the lack of medical care, the lack of because these companies have to make a profit, so they cut corners. The food is terrible. The medical care is terrible, and people are really sort of suffering some mental health issues in these places. So I think there is a conversation to be had about whether prisons should be run for profit and what
absolutely
that
not.
Means.
It's one of those. It's funny because I would count myself as really neither left nor right. I think I'm really issue by issue personally, and I guess I'd maybe call myself a libertarian if I would go that far as calling myself anything. But one thing that so usually I'm like, I don't feel like government does a very good job with most things. It's my personal belief, but there's certain things that you cannot give to a private or if we're gonna have the power to arrest somebody, you got to see that all the way through. You can't just give that to another organization because you don't want to deal with it anymore. Like, you arrested somebody, now you have to figure out where to put that person and deal with that issue. It has to be important enough to put them away for however long you're gonna put them away for. Prison should be treated as a timeout from society, and then when you're able to come back, you come back. That's not how it functions right now. It's not. I mean, it's really. I mean, the whole point of the whole idea of prison is you did something that we can't have you in regular society for. You need to go over here and think about that for a while, and hopefully have some sort of reform in your life, and then you come back. It's not how it functions. It's just like, because of like you said, the money behind it. It's just like it's a business, and it's like it's society. Like, why is society a business? Like, I don't know. It's just so odd to me that like we don't privatize police force, but we privatize what happens after the police force. Why? Like, how does that? I don't know. It just feels like that whole arm should be cohesive. It just feels like they dump it off. Like, even in immigration as well, it's like where they just dump it off. It's like, okay, you can't be here anymore. Now we're just gonna dump it off to somebody else. It's like, how is that a thing? How do you just give that to somebody else to deal with? It's like, well, you said that they can't be here anymore. Then you got to figure out how to do that in a way that's humane and that we all agree as a society, not some private business deciding what's right and what's wrong. Who knows what they're going to decide morally? Like, the whole point of government is that we decided together that this is what we think should be happening. And it's like, that's just so crazy to me. It's so crazy to me. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
Please.
I think it's something that we really need to look at and to see about reform. Like when you have it's both true for England and for America, where you have the prison or the immigration detention center is the main job provider for a particular town, particularly for like rural towns.
That's terrible.
And that's
terrible.
And that's the main job provider. So of course there's an incentive to fill these places with people.
Right.
And to have them going, and that's to me that is really crazy, because you're kind of creating a machine that you can't stop after a while.
Right. Yeah. So true. It's like the wheels came off. Like you, like it was just like you said, like you made a choice, but you didn't think about like how that's gonna keep going. Like it has to, like if you're gonna like what are those things where it's like they have a quota. Couldn't think of the word. Like when you have a quota for like stopping people or whatever, it's like, why? why? Like, if nobody did anything, then nobody did anything. That just incentivizes people to like find stuff that didn't happen. Like, why? It's just, and you hope that like, you hope that the cop is not going to do the wrong thing. They're going to do the right thing. They took an oath and whatever. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's their job. It's their job to keep, and they have a family, and they got to provide. And if they have a quota, they're going to find a way to find that quota, because that's the policy. I think just before this podcast, I'm losing track now because I'm losing track of days with coronavirus quarantine. But I had an officer on actually last podcast, and I was just talking to him about the issues, getting a different perspective on things. And I was talking to him, and one of the things that he said to me that I thought was very poignant. He said, if you give us a policy, we're going to follow the policy, because at the end of the day, we want to go home to our family, and we want to keep our job, and we want to go see our family at the end of the day and keep our job and keep our career and whatever. And that was like kind of innocuous, but like when you think about it, it's very true. It's like what you were saying with the policy of like keeping that going. It's like, well, they're going to keep finding the quota and keep doing what they have to do because they're going to want to keep their job at the end of the day. So it's like changing that. I think David Israel said that earlier with Ace Pick Plays. He was like, it's less about like it's like changing the trajectory of where we're going. Like if you change the incentives or whatever, I keep forgetting the word, but anyways, if you change the fact that they have a quota, like instead of them always having to keep going this way because they have to like meet the quota, they have to keep going. It's like, well, if you take that away, then like things will just slowly get better. Like policy changes things in an incremental way. I don't know. It's almost time to vote. Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. We have to get out there.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
I hope I didn't step on any toes with anything I'm saying. I don't really know what I'm talking about, but I mostly just come from like I just feel like so much of it is just a knee-jerk reaction of just like, that's just common sense. Like that's how I feel every time I find out something new, I'm just like, that's common sense. Why aren't we already doing that? Like every time I hear a new issue, I'm just like, why aren't we already doing that? Like so much of what's going on now, I don't know. I feel like I've just been listening a lot lately, and I've just been hearing stuff, and I'm like, how is that still a thing? How are we? It's just, I don't know. I feel like I'm constantly baffled every day.
I think it's because this country was built in a very specific way to serve very specific people. And so things are staying the same, or things are, like you were saying, like it's, what am I trying to say?
It's okay.
It should make sense. There should be common sense behind it, but it doesn't serve necessarily, the common sense doesn't necessarily serve other people, the people who set up the system. So it's not, it may not make sense. You know what I mean? Does that make,
No, I get it. It's like it's systems in place, and like it just goes back to the systematic. Yeah, right. The word systematic and systematic racism.
Systemic, right? Yeah.
Systemic. Yeah. Right. I don't know. Is there? Okay. Here's a fun pop quiz for the two of you. What's one policy that you, if you could snap your fingers and change, just a policy? Like what's something that really, obviously there's probably 10 or 15 or 100 that you could name, but like what's one that you feel like would make a large change quickly? I don't know. I just like looking at things that are like actionable. That's just my dumb boy brain that can't. I don't I'm not good at talking about my feelings. I'm good at talking about what to do. My girlfriend tells me that all the time. So I don't know. I'm just curious. Like as people who are in
as
it.
a storyteller, for me, it would be a change in our industry, especially in Britain. We don't really have enough diversity, and I would love to see more stories of not centering, white people into every story, not having the white savior narrative in a lot of stories. To get away from that and to have a diversity of stories would be one thing that I think could improve. And we have a problem in Britain that the executives who run all the TV companies and so on, they're all almost homogeneously white, and they often are Cambridge graduates and often male. So I think that is one thing I would love to see in Britain specifically, just a kind of a big sea change of stories, because stories are really important. It's how the country sees itself, it's how it learns about itself, and to get away from the kind of homogeneous story that I've grown up with, unfortunately.
Sure. Yeah.
I would like to piggyback on that and say pretty much the same thing. I feel like we've grown up I grew up I was a kid in the 80s, and everybody looked the same, and it was so important to me to see somebody who looked like me on screen, or to read books that featured people who I could relate to. And then being a woman and being raised by Black women primarily, there was such a strong Black female voice in my head at all times. And I would love to see more of that represented on screen, in books, on TV, and not even just on the surface, but behind the scenes as well. I believe that it starts from the beginning. It starts from the top. And so we have to have more people in place who are minorities, whether they're Black, Asian, Hispanic, whatever. We need more women in place. I'm really tired of this old boys club where if you're not just like a homosexual white man, then you're just clawing and trying to find equality that way. So I agree with Dr. Hassan, and I think that representation matters. And that is one thing that I would like to see reformed.
Yeah, it's something that I think that people who don't create... Oh, go ahead.
I mean, think about the first season of Homeland. I mean, it's now we've improved a little bit, but that first season of Homeland, like, oh my God, is he a Muslim? Is he not a Muslim?
Right.
He's a Muslim. Oh, he's got to be a terrorist.
There was so much xenophobia with that.
And that wasn't that long ago. I mean,
no, not at all.
I of course, it's not that far.
Not at all.
It sort of improved as it went along, but it was almost hilarious in its prejudice and its bigotry.
Yeah, I've never seen it, but I mean from those comments alone, that's terrible.
I don't know if you guys know the story. It's wonderful about Homeland. So they filmed in Beirut, and they had some local street artists who they employed to do the set for them.
Yeah.
And one of them had written "Homeland is racist" in Arabic.
Amazing.
And it was, and they filmed it.
Oh,
and
amazing!
It was on the screen, and of course the producers didn't know that's
because they don't speak it, because they probably don't have. See, and that just points to exactly what you two were talking about. It's like they probably didn't have anyone on the freaking show, any writers or anything that actually speak the language. Like, how stupid is that to not have somebody check what's in the. It's just like, what a great way to just show like how blatantly obvious that they don't know what they're speaking on. I mean, man, wow, that's a great story. I'm so glad you said that. I've never seen the show, but wow. to have them put that there and have nobody catch it when you're based in, oh my gosh, wow, that's wild. That's so wild. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those.
It starts from within.
Yes, yeah. Well, and I think mostly what a lot of people underestimate, and most people go like, oh, you know, silly artist, you know, tricks are for kids, but but like people don't realize how much art and all of that informs just the general culture and movement in our world. Like, it's just so underestimated. I don't know. I think like most people
Everything
who don't
is
have
art.
that, yeah, and most people who don't have that kind of brain, like they don't have some sort of creative, not even that kind of brain. Everybody's creative on some level, whether they stifle it or they don't. But yeah, somebody who isn't like actively nurturing that part of their brain, they don't realize how much that influences like everything. So it's interesting that both of you, when I was like policy, obviously you're both artists, but you were both like, you know, I think culture is more important in that part of it. It's interesting to me, and I think it's true. I don't disagree, actually, but I think that, especially right now, personally, I'm doing a lot of listening, so.
I mean, you know, police reform,
Sure.
and there are a lot of things that need.
Yeah.
I'm from Virginia. I went to a high school called Washington Lee High School. It was named after George Washington and Robert E. Lee. And, you know, I mean, having to dismantle those sorts of systems that don't even make sense because they lost. So why is he being honored? All of these systems that have to be dismantled, I could go into that. But for me right now, where I am right now creatively, I think that this industry that I work in needs to be reformed.
Wow, yeah. Yeah, I know we're getting close to time here, so I won't keep you guys too long. But yeah, that's another one that blows me away, where it's just like these statues and things. It's like, why? Like, what? Like, or somebody, like, I was talking to my girlfriend about this the other day. I was like, I saw some guy, some idiot. He had like his face mask was a statement piece, and he was wearing a freaking Confederate flag as his face mask. I just looked at it.
At least he had on a mask.
Right, at least that, I guess. Yeah. But like. Anyway, I was watching him and I was just like, what an idiot. Like you said, like they lost. Like
you lost.
If nothing, like to it always bothers me when somebody says, then whatever, well, I'll let you guys have your last piece. I'm going to go on my last rant here. But basically it's like I mean, if you would call yourself like a patriot or whatever, it's like literally you're wearing a traitor's flag. I mean, there's no other way to put it. You lost. So, and you wanted to secede from the Union. We're the United States. So even if you just take the entire racial aspect out of it, it's like wearing like a Maoist China flag around. It's like, that's not like, that doesn't like, it's either wild ignorance or just like blatant racism. And so
both.
Probably both.
It's a little column A and a little column B.
Probably both. Also, I'd agree with that. I think most people would agree. Racism is learned, and it's ignorance. I think more than anything. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's I like to keep that in my heart. Hopefully that's true, because I like to believe that most people are good, and most people want to do the right thing. But I don't know. It just seems like a lot of people are doing the wrong thing lately, and I'm hoping it comes from ignorance and being an idiot than malice. Because if it's malice, I don't know, we're not in a good way.
Racism is more systemic than that. It's not just about, I mean, there is, of course, the overt racism, which is somebody sort of directly saying, I hate somebody. But sure. I actually sometimes think the more insidious one is the kind of structural one. Right. The way organizations are set up, the way hierarchies in institutions are, access that people of color have to these places. So they're not necessarily, there is a die-hard, racist standing at the door, foaming at the mouth, going, you can't come in. It's not that. It's sometimes very liberal people who guard these places, and I think that's the next thing we have to overcome. And I think this whole movement now to call that, you can't just say I'm not racist. You have to actually be anti-racist. I think that's a fantastic move that has happened in in recent years, and I think that's making people active rather than just sort of going, well, I'm not that. So
yeah,
right. I think that a lot of people have been skating the line for a really long time. They've been kind of like walking that tightrope. They don't want to ruffle feathers on either side. But I think right now you have to pick a freaking side. Just like do it. Like do it already. Like be racist or don't. And microaggressions are a huge problem. And lack of awareness of your privilege, and all of that is a part of the problem. And so it's important to be anti-racist and to take a stand.
Yeah. Briefly, and then I promise I will let you guys go because I know you both have to go. But could one of you speak more to? I feel like I have a vague, hazy idea. And maybe this is a huge thing and I'm opening a can of worms, but could one of you speak more to on like anti-racism other than obviously, I guess, I don't know. I just feel like, cause when we say like, you have to pick a side and whatever, but yet it's also it's so like we just talked about where it's like nuanced and under the skin and you're maybe not recognizing it. I feel like personally, I've been awakening to a lot of things lately and going, like I just said earlier, I was like, how is it not already that way? You know, and kind of realizing certain things. I guess I'm wondering
it's not new. Like
sure.
this isn't anything that's brand new. These are things that have been set up for centuries, for hundreds and hundreds of years. And a lot of people and a lot of people have been sort of resting in their place of comfort and resting in their ignorance and not and in their privilege and not really realizing that it's a problem because it's not something that you have to deal with.
Sure.
But for us, for me, for Dr. Hassan, for people who even for yourself, Renee.
Sure.
I mean, this is something that has been going on forever and ever and ever and ever. So, I mean, I think it's really interesting to me when people say that they're just like learning about it or they're just waking, this is not new. And we've been in the streets fighting for a long time now. And it's taken this year when everybody's in quarantine and everybody is kind of just like, you got nothing else to do but like pay attention and think about it for people to actually start to say something. It's people who aren't just Black people who are coming out and they're actually saying something about the issues that are taking place. And I think that for people who are not minorities, I think that anti-racism is important because, like I said, this isn't new, and you've been resting in like sort of like ignorance is bliss, and now it's time to just be like, I'm not a racist. I don't believe that bullshit.
Right.
I am going to come out and I'm going to fight with you. It's that firmness. It's just being very clear about where you stand and not pandering to both sides. Sure. That's how I see it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Yeah, that was
It's often in little things. There was on Twitter an artistic director, a Black artistic director, who was complaining. I mean, not complaining, like rightly saying, "Why am I being asked by all the press to comment about Black Lives Matter? Why don't they ask the white artistic directors to comment as well?" We often see race as something that sort of Black people have to comment about and be represented, when actually the perpetrators are white people.
Right.
They're the ones that have to answer to them. And I think there is a kind of a movement now happening of demanding that, of going, you step up now and you talk about it. This isn't just the onus is not just on us.
I agree. And I also, I mean, what was it? I had a whole thought. I think that we have been trying forever to be heard. I think that we have been trying. We've been trying. Nobody's listening. You're not listening. We've been trying. We've tried it in different ways. We've tried, and actually I touch upon this on my play. We've tried kneeling. We've tried marching. We've tried being angry. We've tried all of these different ways to have our points heard, and nobody's freaking listening to us. So if it's not working for us, then we need allies who are going to come out, who aren't brown, who people will actually listen to, because people will listen to a white person say this isn't right before a black person. They'll listen to a white person over a black person, because, like I said, they've been saying it forever. You know, allyship is really important right now.
Yeah, I guess kind of speaking to like a platform, right? It's like use what you got to say something. Yeah, I think it's one of those where I don't know, personally. I mean, I'm again, like I said, I'm actually full Hispanic, so I'm very conscious of a lot of, like, it's funny when you're speaking about the immigration issues and stuff like that. It's something that I'm very conscious of and know about pretty intimately, just because the nature of my plight. I don't have a plight, but personally, I mean, I don't have a plight, but I just, you know, the plight of my people, I guess. But it's, I feel so lately I've been trying to just, this is one of the reasons why I've been having guests on and talking to people like you, because I've been trying to listen more and understand more. I feel like it's so important for me personally to, it's very humbling. Like I sit here from my space and I go, how, like I said, like, how did I not know this was going on? Because there's these things that come up that it's like one of the things that was, I mean, like the Aunt Jemima thing, had no idea. I didn't know until like 3 days ago. I was like, I honestly, for a second, knee-jerk reaction, I was like, that's kind of dumb. Like, Aunt Jemima's this sweet, like, it's so stupid to say it out loud now that I know actually what it was. But in my mind, I saw this sweet, I was like, isn't that like a good thing? Like, is this a sweet black lady? And then my girlfriend, bless her heart, is educating me on so many things. And she was teaching me this. She's like, it started with these like these minstrel, like, not even minstrel. Yeah, the mammy character. And I was like, okay, well, that's very general. And then when I heard that she was made to like go around in a traveling show saying that like these are the best pancakes on the plantation, I was like, oh my Lord, why is this a thing? Why was it ever a thing?
And you know what's really interesting about Aunt Jemima too, like, that I always found kind of funny. I mean, we were always like, wait a second, that's racist.
Yeah.
But she wore like a do-rag until the 90s.
Oh, really?
Until the 90s. They didn't give her like her cute little hairstyle she's got now. Yeah. Until like she was like walking around like a mammy well into the 90s.
Yeah.
It's and that was them trying to be progressive at that point.
Right.
It's such a thing. It's such a thing. And it just needs to go. Uncle Ben's too.
Really?
Famous Amos cookies. Well, that's a thing. Like it can.
Right. Yeah. There's so many things that I'm learning and listening to, and I appreciate you guys taking the time to talk to me about it. I think more than anything, it's, at least I'll speak for myself. I feel like personally it's a time of humbling myself in order to listen and understand more. And like you guys said, like, when I see something that doesn't make sense, say something. Like, it's just the old adage, see something, say something. It's like, if you're seeing something that doesn't make sense anymore, which I think is, we didn't really touch on it, but like just the George Floyd thing in general, I think that was what was so powerful about it, is that there was no gray area. It's so blatantly what it is, that there was no, it's the perfect powder keg of just like, there's no in between. There's no gray area of what happened there. It's very blatantly obvious of what happened. And you know, things will play out in court however they play out, but you know, that's the court of public opinion is already out, man. And it's like, we saw what happened, and I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It's a great awakening for a lot of people.
It's interesting. I mean, I'm sorry. I know you're wrapping this up.
Don't care. But I'll go as long as you guys want.
George Floyd, it was blatant, but so was Trayvon Martin. Even though there wasn't video, that was blatant.
Yeah.
So was the other guy that was running away and they shot him in the back, and they did get, I can't think of his name, but Michael Brown was one, but there was another one, an older guy who was running, and there's video of it, and he's running, and they shoot him in the back.
It's unfortunate that there's so many we can't remember. It's just...
Sorry, terrible. I didn't hear you.
I was saying it's unfortunate that there's so many that we literally can't remember names. It's just...
Yeah, oh my God, it's like
that
crazy.
Alone.
But like, Walter Scott, that was that one. But like, all of these are blatant. All of them are blatant. But right now, this George Floyd is the one that was it's sparked something within people, which we're grateful for. I'm so grateful for it.
Yeah.
But it's just unfortunate that it wasn't able to happen a bit sooner.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it should have happened a long time ago. Again, all the stuff that I'm learning, I'm like, this should have been a long time ago, you know? Yeah. Yeah. So true. Very, very poignant. Very true what you just said, where it's just like, it's been happening, but it's just one of those things where I think with video, we're such visual creatures. As much as we don't like to admit it, we're such visual creatures, and I feel like being able to see it viscerally and as terrible as it is to watch that video, there's no gray area when you're seeing it. Again, there's probably no gray area in any of those other instances as well, but there's the fact that everybody has a phone in their pocket and they could see that video if they wanted to see it. It's just like, just blew it up. It blew it up to what it is, and you know, I think it's good. I think it's good that we're all. I mean, not I think. I know it's good that we're all. You know, finally, hopefully, digging out the thing that's been infecting us this whole time. I hope that we actually do what needs to be done, and we're all going to disagree on how to get there. But like, the most important thing is to keep listening to people, man. Especially listen to people that you don't think you're going to agree with, because that's the other thing I noticed too, is like so many people I thought I wasn't going to agree with on certain issues, really listening to them and doing things like this podcast where I like hear their rationale and talking to them of actually what they believe and why they believe that, why it's going to change and stuff, is like, I don't know, it's helped me realize that we have a lot more, most people I think have a lot more in common than we give it credit for. I just hope we keep listening, man.
I think one of the hopeful things is this. I find the phenomenal success of Black Lives Matter really inspiring. It's a campaign that just took over. It's gone global.
Yeah,
it's affected global. So many institutions have had to react to it and come out and make statements, and and it's really something that gives hope, you know. And it's decentralized. There isn't a leader that can be shot, you know.
Yeah, that's an interesting aspect of it too. Yeah.
It's really smart.
It's very smart. It's I think a really hopeful thing in the world.
It makes it feel like more, at least in my small scope of understanding, it makes it feel more genuine in some sense. Like, I don't know if that makes sense, but like if there was one person championing something at this time, we've already had that, right? Like, we've already had one person championing something, and that got us to a point, you know, with like, you know, MLK and Malcolm X and things like that, I guess. Like, that's kind of who I'm mentally pointing to. But like that, I mean, he got shot, you know, and
yeah, they both did.
Yeah, and like, I think the fact that there is no leader in a weird way kind of like points to like, well, it's just people feel that way. You know, people just feel that way. There is no necessarily one puppeteer pushing the strings. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't feel like I am.
No, I think you're right. And I think that, like, you know, just points to the thought that we're all in this together. We are all, you know, divided, we fall. You know, together we can create something amazing together.
Sure.
And I don't know. I mean, it's great that we had leaders like MLK, like Malcolm X, like others, leaders of the Black Panthers, but they were all targeted and they were all taken out.
Right.
And then that also creates like you would have a following, and then, like, you know, are you a megalomaniac? Or I don't want to say that they are that, but like, you know, just like it's great to have a group of people coming together rather than just like following somebody blindly.
Yeah. Well, listen, we could keep opening cans of worms because I was about to do it right now. I mean, that's the problem with our presidency right there, is that we have a megalomaniac. So, I mean, I feel like anybody who wants to run for that office right now is just like, you have to believe something crazy about yourself if you think you could run the entire country in the state that it's in right now.
It's like you just are.
It's crazy. I mean,
crazy.
It's crazy. Anyways, I want to thank you both for your time. We are already 20 minutes over, and I really appreciate you guys sticking around, but I know you have places to be and things to do. Yeah. So I appreciate your time and finishing these thoughts with me, because I think we could talk for hours about this. We could talk for days about this and not be done. But I think this conversation was really cool and helpful, at least for myself. and I hope for other people who are watching and listening. And I do want to plug again the whole reason that we're here, the Pick Plays. Your guys is on discrimination, and it is on July 11th?
July 11th. Yeah.
July 11th. Okay. Which is a Saturday, if I remember right? Mm-hmm. Great. And I will plug everything at the end, and in the comments down below there'll be like links and everything to everybody's socials if you want to stalk these people, or if you want to go to ACE or anything like that and watch the play on July 11th. You should do that. It's really cool what they're doing, and I think it's a really interesting way to use this medium and the time that we're in to reach people. So I commend you guys for that as well. Any final words before we sign off here?
No.
Just be anti-racist.
No, it's been a great conversation.
Yep, be anti-racist.
There we go. No, thank you both. This was a pleasure.
Once more. With reading. Try that again.